The immigration officers laughed at Steven Seagal. They barely looked at his documents. Their tone was sharp and dismissive. One officer waved his hand and said, "Step aside, you do not look important." The hall was bright with daylight pouring through tall glass windows. Morning travelers moved slowly after long flights. Some rubbed their eyes. Some checked their phones. Everyone could hear the mocking tone at the counter. Steven stood calm and silent. He wore simple clothes. No assistants. No security. No urgency. Just patience. The officer flipped through the passport with boredom. He pushed it back across the counter. He laughed again. Another officer joined in. Their smiles were not friendly. They were cruel. A woman in line frowned. A businessman looked away. Most people pretended not to notice. Disrespect often hides in public places because no one wants trouble. Steven did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He did not explain who he was. He simply listened. One officer leaned back in his chair. He said, "People like you should wait at the side. This line is for important passengers, not for nobodies." The words hung heavy in the air. Daylight filled the hall, but the mood turned cold. Time felt slower. Steven glanced at the clock on the wall. 9 minutes until his next meeting. 9 minutes until everything would change. He slowly took out his phone. No anger on his face. No rush in his movement. Just one quiet call. The officers laughed harder. They thought they had won. To them, he was just another traveler they could control. Another face they could dismiss without consequence. Passengers began to watch. Something felt different. There was no fear in Steven. Only calm confidence. The clock ticked. 1 minute passed. Then another. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Fast and urgent. The laughter faded. The officers did not know it yet. But every second was counting against them. Their words were already recorded. Their actions already reported. In just 9 minutes, the same officers who mocked him would be standing in silence. Badges questioned. Careers ending. The man they disrespected was not ordinary. And the lesson they were about to learn would stay with everyone who witnessed it. It was a bright weekday morning at the international airport. Sunlight streamed through wide glass walls and reflected off polished floors. The immigration hall felt busy but slow at the same time. Screens flashed arrival numbers. Announcements echoed softly overhead. Passengers stood in long lines. Some leaned on their suitcases. Some stared at their phones. Others looked exhausted after overnight flights. Faces showed boredom, frustration, and quiet hope to be cleared quickly. The mood was ordinary. Nothing unusual. Just another morning at a crowded airport. Then Steven Seagal arrived. He walked in alone. No assistants followed him. No security cleared the way. No whispers announced his presence. He wore casual clothes. A simple jacket. Dark sunglasses. Nothing that suggested power or importance. He did not rush. He did not look around. He simply joined the line like everyone else. A few people glanced at him. Some thought he looked familiar. Most paid no attention at all. Steven waited patiently. Minutes passed. The line moved slowly. When it was his turn, he stepped forward calmly. He removed his sunglasses. He reached into his pocket and took out his passport. His movements were relaxed and respectful. He placed the passport on the counter. He looked at the officer and nodded politely. The officer barely looked up. He picked up the passport with 2 fingers. His eyes scanned it for a second. Then he smirked. He looked at Steven from head to toe. The clothes. The calm posture. The lack of status symbols. Another officer leaned closer. He whispered something. Both of them laughed quietly. Steven noticed but did not react. His expression remained neutral. His posture did not change. The officer flipped the passport shut. He tapped it against the desk slowly. Not checking the screen. Not asking a single question. Passengers behind Steven began to notice the tension. A man adjusted his backpack. A woman crossed her arms. Everyone sensed something was wrong. Steven stayed silent. He did not interrupt. He did not demand respect. The officer pushed the passport back slightly. He raised one eyebrow. The laugh came again. Short. Mocking. Steven took a slow breath. He kept his hands relaxed at his sides. His eyes stayed focused. In a place where authority often feels absolute. Where uniforms can decide your mood and your fate. Steven chose calm. He had traveled enough to know this moment. The moment where ego tests patience. The moment where reactions are expected. But he gave none. The hall remained bright. Sunlight still poured in. But the atmosphere around the counter grew heavy. A clock ticked loudly on the wall. Seconds passed clearly now. The officers thought they were in control. They believed appearance defined importance. They believed power meant dominance. Steven believed in something else. He believed time reveals truth. He waited. Backhand index pointing right. Comment below where you are watching from. Backhand index pointing right and salute to those who stay calm under pressure. The officer pushed the passport back across the counter. Not gently. Not respectfully. His voice was loud enough for others to hear. Move aside. This line is for priority passengers. The words carried weight. Not because they were true, but because they were meant to humiliate. Steven looked at the passport for a moment. Then he looked up. His voice stayed calm. Almost soft. I am already cleared. The officer laughed. Not alone this time. 2 others joined him. Cleared. Sure. Their tone dripped with sarcasm. One officer leaned back in his chair. Another shook his head. They spoke over Steven. They spoke around him. But never to him with respect. The computer screen remained untouched. No typing. No verification. No process. They delayed his entry on purpose. Passengers behind Steven stopped checking their phones. They stopped talking. Silence spread through the line. Everyone knew this moment. The moment when power is misused. The moment when someone is tested not by rules but by ego. Steven stood still. Hands relaxed. Shoulders steady. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He did not step aside. The officer tapped the desk again. Move. Steven did not move. The tension grew thicker. Even the sunlight felt colder now. A man behind Steven cleared his throat. No one else spoke. The officers exchanged looks. They enjoyed the control. They enjoyed the attention. One officer said loudly. People like you always think rules do not apply. Another laughed. Always the same story. Steven listened. Every word. Every tone. He glanced at his watch. 9 minutes. Still nothing on his face. No anger. No fear. He reached slowly into his pocket. Not rushed. Not dramatic. The officers watched closely. Hands hovered near their radios. Steven pulled out his phone. He turned slightly away from the counter, shielding the screen from view. He made one quiet call. No long conversation. No raised voice. Just a few calm words. Yes. I am here. Yes. Understood. He ended the call and slipped the phone back. The officers scoffed. Calling someone. Like that will help. They waved him toward the side. Wait there. Steven stepped aside slowly. Not in defeat, but with patience. Passengers whispered now. Some recorded. Some shook their heads. Time moved forward. 1 minute passed. Then another. The officers continued processing others. But their eyes kept drifting back to Steven. Something felt off. The line moved. But the tension stayed. Steven stood quietly near the wall, looking straight ahead. The officers did not know it yet. But the quiet call had already changed everything. The conflict was no longer between a traveler and officers. It was between arrogance and consequence. And the clock was still ticking. Minutes passed. The hall felt different now. Not louder. Not quieter. Heavier. Air moved, but no one felt relaxed. The bright daylight still poured through the glass walls. Yet the warmth was gone. Steven stood near the sidewall. Hands relaxed. Back straight. Eyes forward. He did not watch the officers. He did not check his phone again. He simply waited. At the counters the officers kept working. Stamps hit passports. Screens flickered. But their rhythm was broken. One officer checked his terminal. A message popped up. His smile faded. Another officer touched his earpiece. He nodded once. Then frowned. Supervisors began receiving calls. Not casual calls. Not routine updates. These calls were short. Direct. Urgent. One supervisor stepped away from the desk. He lowered his voice. His posture stiffened. He looked toward Steven. Then looked away quickly. Passengers sensed the shift. Whispers traveled down the line. Phones slowly rose into the air. People stopped pretending nothing was happening. An officer wiped his palms on his uniform. Another adjusted his collar. Confidence drained from their faces. The laughter from earlier was gone. The smirks disappeared. Only tension remained. A door at the far end of the hall opened. Footsteps echoed sharply. Fast. Purposeful. One officer glanced over his shoulder. Then froze. Senior officials were walking toward immigration. Not strolling. Not chatting. They moved with urgency. With authority. Dark suits. Serious expressions. Badges visible. The officer swallowed hard. He leaned toward his colleague. He whispered something. The color drained from both their faces. Another officer noticed. Then another. Fear spread faster than sound. The supervisor straightened his posture. He stepped forward. Then stopped. His eyes locked on Steven. Recognition flashed across his face. Passengers began recording openly now. No one tried to hide it. The hall filled with quiet anticipation. Steven remained still. Unbothered. Unmoved. The officials drew closer. Each step echoed louder than the last. The officers who mocked him earlier could not look away. Their hands trembled. Their breathing grew shallow. One officer whispered again. This time his voice shook. Another officer shook his head slowly, as if hoping this was not real. The supervisors checked their phones again. More messages. More confirmations. No one smiled now. The officials stopped just a few steps away. The entire immigration area fell silent. No announcements. No stamps. No voices. Only the hum of lights overhead. Steven finally turned his head. Just slightly. His eyes met theirs. There was no anger. No satisfaction. Just calm. The officers understood in that moment. The quiet call. The waiting. The silence. It had all been deliberate. Power had entered the room. Not loudly. Not violently. But undeniably. Fear replaced arrogance. Regret replaced laughter. The reaction had begun. Senior officials stopped directly in front of Steven. Their movement was sharp and controlled. Their posture changed the atmosphere instantly. One of them spoke first. "Sir, we sincerely apologize for the inconvenience." The words echoed through the hall. Clear. Formal. Respectful. Passengers froze. Phones stopped moving. Even the air felt still. Steven nodded slightly. He did not speak yet. The officials turned slowly toward the immigration officers. Their expressions hardened. "Oh, you know who this is." No one answered. The officers stood frozen. Eyes wide. The senior official took a step forward. "This is Steven Seagal." A pause. "Government advisor. Special authority clearance." The words hit like a shockwave. The officers stared at Steven. The same man they mocked. The same man they delayed. Reality settled in. One officer stepped back slightly. Another lowered his head. Passengers began whispering loudly now. Some gasped. Others nodded as if things finally made sense. The supervisor's face tightened. He swallowed hard. Steven finally spoke. His voice was calm. Measured. "I followed procedure. I showed my documents. I waited respectfully. He looked at the officers, then back at the official. Respect should not depend on appearance. The official nodded. The officers could barely breathe. Their earlier confidence was gone, replaced by fear and disbelief. One officer tried to speak. His voice cracked. "Sir, I did not know." Steven raised his hand gently. "That is exactly the problem." The hall stayed silent. The officials exchanged looks. This was no longer a misunderstanding. This was misconduct. Passengers leaned in. Every word mattered now. Steven turned slightly, looking around the hall. Everyone is watching. This is how authority is judged. The officers stood stiff, waiting, hoping. The official cleared his throat. He looked at the officers again. "Your behavior has been noted." Fear spread across their faces. Steven took a breath. He remained composed. He did not demand punishment. He did not raise his voice. He simply stood as the truth unfolded. The reveal was complete. The power dynamic had shifted. Permanently. What happens next will define this place. Backhand index pointing right. What should happen next? Backhand index pointing right. Fire or final warning. Backhand index pointing right. Comment your answer below. The decision was immediate. No debate. No delay. The officers were removed instantly. A senior official gave a short command. Security stepped forward. Firm. Professional. Badges were taken. Radios collected. Duty status suspended on the spot. The officers did not resist. They could not. Their shoulders dropped. Their faces showed shock and regret. One by one they stepped away from the counters. The same counters where moments earlier they had laughed. Where they had mocked. Now those counters stood empty. The immigration hall went silent. No stamping. No announcements. No whispers. Passengers watched in stillness. Phones held steady. Eyes fixed. Authority had shifted. Steven stood calmly near the center of it all. Not celebrating. Not satisfied. Just present. A senior official turned to him. "Sir, the situation has been handled." Steven nodded once. He stepped forward slightly. His voice was clear. Calm. Firm. Authority without respect is abuse. The words cut through the silence. Rules exist to protect, not to humiliate. He looked around the hall. At the staff. At the supervisors. At the passengers. Uniforms do not give permission to degrade people. No one interrupted. Power is not proven by raising your voice. It is proven by how you treat those who cannot defend themselves. The supervisors lowered their eyes. Steven continued. Every person in this line trusted you with their dignity, not just their passport. The weight of the moment settled deep. One supervisor nodded slowly. Training will be reviewed. Procedures will be enforced. Steven listened. He did not ask for compensation. He did not ask for special treatment. He asked for one thing only: respect. Passengers began to relax. The tension faded slowly. Some nodded in agreement. Some quietly applauded. The hall felt different now. Calmer. Fairer. The counters reopened with new officers. Their movements careful. Their voices polite. The earlier arrogance was gone. Steven stepped back. He checked his watch. Still on time. The senior official gestured toward the counter. "Sir, we can proceed now." Steven shook his head gently. "Proceed correctly. With everyone." The official nodded. Steven turned toward the exit. He did not wait for applause. He did not look back. He walked away as he had arrived. Quiet. Calm. Behind him the hall resumed its rhythm. But the lesson remained. Authority had been corrected. Respect had been restored. Never judge by appearance. The clothes someone wears do not define their worth. The silence someone keeps does not mean weakness. And the calm in someone's voice does not mean lack of power. That day at the airport proved a simple truth. Respect should be equal for everyone. Not because of titles. Not because of wealth. Not because of influence. But because dignity is a human right. Power is not revealed through position. It is revealed through behavior. Anyone can wear a uniform. Anyone can sit behind a counter. Anyone can hold authority for a moment. But not everyone knows how to carry it. True authority does not humiliate. It does not mock. It does not enjoy control. True authority protects. It listens. It treats every person as worthy of basic respect. The officers believed power gave them permission. Permission to judge. Permission to belittle. They were wrong. The moment they forgot respect, they lost their authority. Steven did not demand recognition. He did not announce his identity. He did not threaten consequences. He let character speak louder than status. And that is why the lesson mattered. Because anyone can find themselves on either side of that counter, as the one being judged, or the one doing the judging. Every day offers that choice. To lead with ego, or to lead with humanity. The world remembers how you make people feel. Long after it forgets what position you held. A kind word can change a moment. A cruel one can expose a character. Respect costs nothing, but it reveals everything. The passengers who watched that morning did not just see officers removed. They saw a reminder. That patience is strength. That silence can be powerful. That dignity cannot be taken unless it is given away. This story is not about fame. It is not about authority. It is about choice. The choice to treat others fairly, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Backhand index pointing right, type respect if you believe dignity matters. Backhand index pointing right and tell me where you are watching from. Your voice deserves to be heard.